Welcome back to Investing Talk Podcast. Today, we're going to take a look at RCAT Holdings.
Oh, yeah.
They're in the drone tech world, trading under the ticker symbol RCAT.
Interesting.
So their stock, well, it's been kind of all over the place recently.
Yeah.
And we're going to try to figure out, what's going on. We'll look at the charts and we'll look at the news, see what's driving all the ups and downs.
Okay, sounds good.
So to kind of set the scene here, RCAT closed at $14.16 on January 6th.
Okay.
But here's the thing. During that same day, the price went from $15.27 down to $12.84.
Wow, that's a big swing.
Yeah, pretty volatile.
Yeah.
And if you look at, the bigger picture, over the past month, it's up more than 50%, a whopping 50.48% to be exact.
Wow.
And get this, if you look at the whole year, it's up 426.9%.
That's huge. What's driving that kind of growth?
Yeah, something's definitely got investors excited, right?
Right.
But before we jump into all that, let's take a look at the charts. What are the technical indicators telling us?
Right. Well, let's start with the moving averages. So the 50-day moving average is sitting at $7.29, and the 200-day is at $3.20.
Okay.
And both of those are, way below the current price. So that's a really strong signal of a bullish trend.
So it looks like the price is, probably going to keep going up.
Yeah, that's what it's suggesting.
So momentum seems to be on RCAT's side. Anything else we can see from the charts?
Yeah, let's look at the RSI, the Relative Strength Index. It's currently at 57.35, which puts it right in the neutral zone.
Neutral zone, okay.
Yeah, so the stock isn't overbought or oversold. And that kind of suggests there's still room for it to go higher, without hitting a ceiling.
So no warning signs of a pullback just yet.
Not from the RSI, no. And actually, the MCD, that's another momentum indicator, is giving us a buy signal. It's at 0.83.
Okay.
What that means is that the short-term average is higher than the long-term average. So that also suggests that the price could keep moving up.
Okay, so we've got a couple of momentum indicators saying there's potential for growth. What about, we talked about the volatility earlier, those big swings during the day. How does that factor in?
Right, yeah, and you can really see that volatility in the Bollinger Bands. RCAT is trading near the top of those bands right now, which, yeah, does mean there's high volatility, but, it also could mean that there's more upward momentum, especially if it stays where it is right now.
So it's riskier, but with potential for bigger gains.
Exactly. And all this excitement, it's showing up in the trading volume, too.
Oh, yeah.
On January 6th, over 16 million shares were traded. That's way more than the average, which is around 7 million.
Yeah.
So all this increased volume, well, it just shows how much interest there is in RCAT right now.
So it seems like all the signals from the charts are pretty good for RCAT. But what's the story, behind the numbers? Why are investors so interested?
Yeah, well, it's not just the general hype around drones. RCAT has made some smart moves, particularly with the military, that are getting people talking.
You're talking about a contract with the U.S. Army, right?
Yeah.
The short-range reconnaissance program.
Exactly. Getting that contract is a really big deal for RCAT. It gives them access to a market that's growing really fast, with huge potential for revenue.
Because the military is using more and more drones, right?
Exactly. And now RCAT's right in the middle of that.
And it's not just the hardware, is it? I mean, their partnership with Palantir Technologies is, adding a whole other level to what they're offering.
Absolutely. That partnership is a big one. They're integrating Palantir's software, which is, some really advanced visual navigation stuff, into RCAT's Black Widow drones.
Wow.
Yeah, so you combine that cutting-edge hardware with that software, and it's a huge selling point, for both military and commercial customers.
So they're not just, building drones. They're building smart drones.
Exactly. Now, their earnings report, well, it might seem a little confusing at first.
Oh, yeah. Like what?
Well, their revenue so far this year is $4.3 million. It's not exactly, through the roof.
Yeah.
And their EPS, their earnings per share, is negative $0.18.
So they're losing money.
Yeah, but it's important to look at the bigger picture here.
Right.
Their projections for 2025 are super ambitious. They're saying they could make between $80 million and $120 million for the whole year.
Wait, so they're saying their revenue could increase 10 times or even more?
That's right. And that negative EPS, it's actually strategic.
Strategic?
Yeah, they're putting a lot of money into research and development and those big partnerships we were talking about. So they're building up for massive growth in the future, even if they lose some money right now.
So it's not a bad sign. It just means they're focusing on the long term.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that long-term vision is attracting some big-time investors.
Like institutional investors.
Yeah, big names like State Street Corporation are buying more and more shares of RCAT. That's a really good sign. These are institutions with tons of money and a history of making smart investments.
So it's not just like everyday investors who are excited about RCAT. The big players see the potential too.
Absolutely. And that's something anyone who's thinking about investing in RCAT should keep in mind.
So we've got a company in a hot sector, drones focused on the military, which is growing like crazy. The charts look good, the news is positive, but like we said, it's also pretty volatile. So what does all this mean for, the average investor?
Well, the main takeaway is that RCAT is what we call a speculative play.
Speculative.
Yeah, it could pay off big, but it's also risky. So if you're someone who doesn't like taking risks, this might not be the right stock for you.
Right.
But if you're okay with a little bit of a roller coaster ride and you believe in the future of drones, then RCAT could be worth checking out.
So there you have it, folks. Our take on Red Cat Holdings, a company with a lot of potential in a, really exciting and fast-moving industry. Now, before we go any further, tell us what you think.
Yeah, what stood out to you about RCAT? Are you optimistic or pessimistic about this company? Let us know in the comments.
And hey, if you like this breakdown of RCAT, hit that subscribe button and share this episode with your investing buddies. We'll be back soon with another look at the market's most exciting companies. Until then, happy investing.
But we should think about the bigger picture too, not just the numbers. What's happening in the world that could, affect RCAT?
That's a good point. You're talking about like geopolitics, right?
Yeah.
Wars, conflicts, all that stuff.
Exactly, yeah. Because all of that can really impact a company like Red Cat, since they're so involved with the military.
Right, because if governments start spending more in the military, that usually means more contracts for defense companies.
Exactly. And Red Cat, with their, advanced drones, they're in a good spot to benefit from that.
But then, what if things settle down globally? Governments might cut back on military spending.
Yeah, absolutely. And that could hurt Red Cat's growth, those big projections we were talking about.
So it's not just about understanding the company itself, it's about understanding the whole world around it.
Exactly. And this is where things get really interesting. We always talk about diversification and investing, right? Well, you got to diversify your information too.
You mean like not just getting your news from one place?
Yeah, exactly. Read different perspectives, challenge what you think you know. That's how you become a really smart investor.
It's like being a detective, right? You got to gather all the clues and try to figure out what's going to happen.
I like that. And just like a good detective, a good investor is always learning and adapting, always looking for an edge.
So let's be detectives for a minute and focus on Red Cat. What are some, key questions investors should be asking?
Well, one big one is, how strong is Red Cat's advantage over other companies? They've got great tech, great partnerships, but the drone industry is always changing, right? New companies pop up all the time.
So investors have to ask, can Red Cat keep up? Can they keep innovating and winning those big contracts?
Exactly. And another thing to think about is, how is Red Cat going to deal with all the, ethical and legal stuff around drones?
Right, all the concerns about privacy, misuse, and all the new regulations.
Yeah, all of that could really affect Red Cat's future.
It's a lot to think about, but it's important for investors.
Absolutely. It's not about knowing all the answers right now. It's about asking the right questions, doing your research, and staying informed as things change.
So being an active investor, not just sitting back and watching your portfolio.
Exactly. Because in the end, investing is about more than just making money. It's about, being part of the future you want to see.
I like that. So as we're wrapping up this part of our look at Red Cat Holdings, what's the big takeaway you want to leave our listeners with?
I think the important thing to remember is that Red Cat has a lot of potential. It's an industry that's growing really fast, but it also faces some big challenges.
So high risk, high reward.
Exactly. And in the end, the decision to invest in Red Cat, well, it's up to each individual investor. They have to decide based on how much risk they're comfortable with, their goals, and how well they understand the company and the industry.
So do your research, stay informed, and as always, invest wisely.
Yeah, that's a really good point. We've been talking a lot about the good stuff, but we should probably talk about the risks too, right? Like what could actually go wrong? What could derail this whole
Yeah,
thing?
what could like totally mess things up for Red Cat?
Well, I mean, first of all, you got to think about the competition. There are a lot of other companies out there, some big ones and some new ones, all trying to get a piece of the drone market.
So Red Cat can't just sit back and relax,
Hmm.
right? They have to keep innovating and make sure their technology is the best.
Right, exactly. They got to stay ahead of everyone else, when it comes to features and all that. And they also have to keep an eye on the price.
Because if their drones get too expensive, people will just buy from someone else, right?
Exactly. And then there's the whole regulatory thing, all those rules about drones we talked about earlier. Well, they could change any time.
And that could really hurt Red Cat, right? Especially if
Mhm.
they're really focused on certain markets or ways of using drones.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And then, you know, there's always the stuff you can't predict, like what's happening in the world.
You mean like if a war breaks out or something?
Yeah, exactly. Like a major conflict or a terrorist attack, anything like that could really shake things up in the market. And companies like Red Cat could get caught in the crossfire.
So even though things look good for the long term, investors need to be ready for some bumps in the road.
Oh, for sure. There's no such thing as a guaranteed investment, and Red Cat is no different.
So to wrap things up, Red Cat is a really interesting company in a really exciting industry. And the charts look good, and there's been some positive news lately. But there are also some risks, and investors need to know about both the good and the bad.
I think that's a great way to put it.
Well, that's it for our look at Red Cat Holdings. We hope this episode has helped you understand this company a little bit better. You know what their potential is and what's affecting their stock price. As always, make sure you do your own research, stay informed, and invest wisely. And hey, don't forget to subscribe to Investing Talk podcast. Share this episode with your friends and let us know what you think in the comments. We'll be back next week with another look at a company that's making a splash in the market. Until then, happy investing.